For the past 12 months, our VIA buyers have reached out to us wanting to start a discussion on environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and corporate governance. CRIF's global presence means that this type of conversation is pretty nothing new to us. We had been in the forefront of dialogues relating to ESG with some of the top companies and financial institutions across the world. Our next speaker is a global senior manager consultant in credit risk management with focus on collection process reengineering and origination process for CRIF. He has intensive experience in global consulting and credit risk management for over 10 years, and we are very happy that he is able to join us this afternoon. Well, his morning. Thank you very much, Claudio, for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our digital stage, Mr. Claudio Doronzo. Ciao,
Thank you.
Claudio.
Hi. Thank you very much. I guess all of you are familiar with what is ESG, no? Just a little bit of background history of ESG. It was, on 25th of September 2015, the governments of 193 United Nations UN members have signed this agenda for 2030 sustainable development. What does it mean? There are, as you can see, 17 action plans that have been agreed on, and each of which is then declined with different programs, events, and detailed targets for a total of 169 associated targets. No, and these are plans ranging from no poverty to zero hunger to life below water to climate action and so on. So based on this program that the governments have, are moving on, there are different goals, and the ESG principles have been set. So we have started from this regulation. And as many other companies actually have, and we have, starting from these 17 goals, we have developed a roadmap, as you can see, of different actions, activities that we have done over the last 4 years. So first of all, as you probably know, CRIF is a company very much active on the credit risk management side. So the first thing where we started our activity, our actions, was trying to find a correlation between the compliance with ESG requirements and credit risk, because this is, let's say, a crucial point, no? Because many banks say that there is not a proved correlation. No? The fact that you are compliant with ESG matters does not necessarily mean that you are less riskier from a credit risk point of view. So we have shown, this is the first point where we have been working on, and we have shown that actually there is correlation between these two matters. So it's very important to integrate, for the banks to integrate the ESG score, and also for the corporates. It's very important to effectively assess your ESG level of ESG compliance. Because this is something that more and more is demanded on the market. And we have, in order to do that, we have started several actions. We have started to calculate ESG scores, and already we have ESG scores available at European level, in both automatic and self-assessment way. And we are spreading this now all over the world. But how we did it? Well, we launched a repository, a data lake, an ESG data lake, where we started gathering information, publicly available information, and information based on corporate social sustainability reports published by companies. And so we, by sourcing this data lake, we have gathered sufficient data in order to start building up ESG scores. Another very interesting point on which we have been working on is the climate risk, because more and more we see every day, you know, that the climate is changing, and this has an impact on the risk that corporates have to face, especially let's say in a medium term, I would say, not so long term, no, because from the point of view of the climate, no, as the climate is changing, we are more and more exposed to extreme levels, to extreme events that may represent also a very important risk for corporates and for, as a consequence, also for lenders. So we have actually created a suite for assessing climate risk in each specific geographical region. And actually, for this specific suite, we have been awarded recently the TechSprint prize from the European Union in the 2021 hackathon. Yeah, we have been working with several different banks on that ESG data lake and on climate risk mainly. And well, we also always keep a look on the European Union regulation that is probably, I'd say, at world level is the regulation that probably is a little bit more binding already, with several regulations that have been published and that are more and more binding for what companies should do. And here you can see in the slide some of the regulations that have been published, from the loan origination and monitoring to the ESG Pillar 3, that is the last one that has been published. And this have an impact on for corporates in the disclosure, because they are more and more obliged to disclose information about their ESG policies, but also for lenders, for loan origination, but also on risk management and on several other processes. Yeah, here you can find a little bit more a timeline of what has been the recent path of the regulation, at least at European level. That is for this second half of 2022. We have several regulations that are coming and that are binding for our companies. The European Union taxonomy, where we have classified all the different industries according to their respect to ESG requirements. Transition risk, which means basically the risk of for a company to adapt to the environmental transition, because obviously certain industries are more ready than others, and certain companies are more ready than others. So this is also a risk that needs to be taken into account. And the disclosure, the Pillar 3 disclosure that is coming, is becoming binding from 31st of December 2022. But let's go a little bit more in details of our topics. So what do we mean about ESG? Obviously, there are three components: environmental, social, and governance. And for each of these components, we have created some specific, and you can assess some specific risks. From the physical risk that I was mentioning relating to the climate risk, the transition risk, the carbon footprint is a topic that more and more we're being asked every day by our customers for solutions able to calculate what is the carbon footprint for or their activities, their transactions. And we are setting up also we're already available several solutions for calculating the carbon footprint of corporates. But also from the social side, there are several other items that we can assess, like community welfare, corporate welfare, and also the presence of certifications. And from governance, obviously, other items like governance structure, governance behavior, and anti-money laundering. So each of these items, then, which can be assessed at a single level, then can also are also combined in order to calculate an overall ESG score that takes into consideration all these elements. As I said, we are developing two different ways to calculate the ESG score, but one is already available at world level, and it's based on a new platform, on a questionnaire, on a self-assessment questionnaire that is available on our platform Synergy, that is also available on the Philippines market. You can check out the Synergy website, and you can start up filling in the questionnaire. And this it's a questionnaire that is comprehensive on all the items that I've shown you before and on all the 17 development goals of United Nations. So we are trying to investigate the most interesting aspects of the ESG requirements, and with your answers, you will be able to evaluate your company compared to the ESG compliance, and also in such a way to identify, to gather at the end an overall ESG score in which you will know your level of compliance, but also the details on each of the different sections, on the environmental, on the social, and on the governance. So you will be able to know if you are more advanced on the environmental rather than on social than on the governance, and also to benchmark towards your peers in what is your level. I mean, if you are higher, better, or not compared to your peers. So we have set up several KPIs and weights that allow to calculate the overall ESG score. Here you can find some results of our initial analysis that we have run on the corporates that on which we already calculated. Here you can see, for example, on the left graph, the distribution of the 5 million Italian companies on which we have already calculated the ESG score. So you can see obviously that there are few corporates that are at a high level of compliance towards ESG standards. So in the green area that let's say are advanced, and also very few that are very much behind. The middle, I mean, the most of the companies are in the three middle classes. So this is the distribution. At the same side, as I mentioned, this is was one of the first exercises in which we calculated the correlation between ESG score and credit risk. And also you can see that actually the corporates that have a bad ESG score have 2 times higher average PD compared to the average, while the corporates that are in the best class have 44% less probability of default compared to the average. So there is correlation. So being compliant with the ESG requirements will allow also directly you to have a lower risk, credit default risk. Here are some results of the final output. So once the questionnaire will be filled in, you will be able to have the final ESG score of your company and benchmark it with the average of your industry to know the detail of the different components and also the distribution of the different sub areas. So it's very interesting for our corporates, in my opinion, to answer to it. Yeah, so how does it work in details? There is a self-assessment questionnaire which is embedded with the information verification. So there is an ALA system that we have set up in order to double cross-check that the answers are provided, let's say, in a coherent way. And then there are also a team of our experts that checks in case some of these alerts are as switched on, and then finally there is an ESG score that is calculated and is provided as output that goes in 5 classes from A to E. So as I mentioned, there is a platform on which you can access Synergy, and where companies can log in and answer the questionnaire. And it's also important for banks. I mean, we more and more we notice that banks, they are inviting their customers to fill in, to submit to this questionnaire. So the process, how it works, so there is typically an invitation from another company to fill in the questionnaire. Probably your typically, let's say, a company wants that all their suppliers have an ESG score, so invites all the suppliers to submit, to participate in the questionnaire. There is a questionnaire compilation. There are these checks of controls, as I told you, and then you will receive a certificate that you will be able to post, to publish on your website, so of your ESG compliance. And this questionnaire and this score will be valid for 12 months, and after 12 months, you'll be asked to update the answers of the questionnaire. What are the different sections? To provide a little bit more details, so about the platform, you can see that there are 5 micro-sections, from business to environmental, social, governance, and also we created an industry-specific section because certain aspects are very much industry specific, and so we defined different questions in order to deep dive specific aspects for each different industries. And the list of questions are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal, with the European Union taxonomy, and with the GRI requirements. Maximum compilation time is approximately 2 hours, and here you can see the link to our platform if you want to fill in the questionnaire. Here are some results, some other results of the output that you can find. So the distribution across the different scores. And I mean, just to summarize, I would like to say that ESG is more and more required by regulation in different countries, and the availability of data is crucial in order to have a comprehensive evaluation. And an ESG assessment is an opportunity for both for corporates and also for lenders to correctly evaluate your own portfolio and your own policies. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Claudio. To start off, perhaps some clarifications, Claudio, based on our experience working with a lot of companies there in Italy as well as across the world, what do you suggest are the first couple of steps that companies can do to prepare, like from an enterprise level, right? To start preparing on their compliance as well as evaluation from an ESG standpoint?
So what can I say? I think that, I mean, apart from saying that filling in the questionnaire would provide you the details, no, because we'll tell you exactly in which area you should, you are already, let's say, in line with the best practice, and in which area you are not. I mean, definitely what we found in our exercises is some kind of lack of information, of certification, of policies. I mean, there are more advanced companies that publish regularly the corporate sustainability reports. And already having that, without saying, is something that shows that at least you have thought about it, and you regularly publish what are your information, what are your status about ESG. This is one point. Then, without saying, obviously, the presence of certifications is another aspect. So definitely, if you have international certification like ISO, this also is an important thing. And then, if I can say, also the carbon footprint. So having active, I mean, the carbon footprint is a tool that is embedded in the questionnaire. So by answering certain questions, you will be able also to evaluate what is your carbon footprint.
Right.
And this also allows to have a good evaluation, in my opinion. And
Thank you very much, Claudio. And
welcome.
another follow-up question regarding the set of questionnaires, right? Are the set of questionnaires that we have at CRIF, of course, I'm sure that it takes into consideration a lot of the regulations that are there in the EU. Is that something that is customizable for, say, in the context of the Philippines and our unique regulations in the Philippines as well as in Asia?
Yeah, I mean, I stressed a lot the European benchmark because here we started, but actually we built up the questionnaire rather based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So they are kind of goals that are valid worldwide. We are actually localizing the platform for each different country. And we are doing a slight, if we see that in some specific countries there is a regulation that somehow is very important on certain aspects, we are customizing the platform for each specific market.
Okay, we've had these conversations with a lot of our buyers here in the Philippines, and these are some of the, I'm echoing some of the interests as well as the questions that they have. In terms of data validation or validation of the answers from the business partners or the suppliers, do we take their answers on face value, or is there any data validation that we do at CRIF to ensure that the answers reflect the actual processes or activities of the business partners?
Yeah, I mean, there are most of questions that I have to say it's based on self-assessment.
I see.
There are some cross-check questions, so that are embedded in order to verify that the customer, that the corporate is answering correctly. And so if we match these incoherencies, there are some alerts that, let's say, highlight then this question, and maybe you won't have the same, you won't have the ESG score in the end. There are also some questions in which you are suggested to upload documents. So yeah, of course, it's not mandatory, but then if the company uploads specific documents, then it gets a better evaluation rather than based on the self-evaluation.
Right. And I think most of the small or small to medium-sized companies would raise this question as well, because a lot of the ESG questionnaires or a lot of the things that big companies would ask them to comply, potentially and naturally the pressure as well as the responsibility would normally fall on the business partners as well as the suppliers, right? And we've seen a lot of a little bit of pushback, a little bit of questions from the micro small businesses saying, I am only a small business. There are some things that I will be unable to comply with. Does this mean that I'm gonna lose the business opportunity with the buyers, for instance, within Via? What do we say to that? How do we ask them, or what advice can we give them to start their compliance with ESG?
I mean, in my opinion, it's normal that probably a small business may not be in an advanced level. I mean, as I've seen you, the distribution from our portfolio that we have analyzed, only 7% was in the best class. No, so especially if you're a small business, I think that you will not be penalized if answering the question you are not in the best class. No, but on the other side, I mean, the fact that you already have thought about ESG and that you have your answer to that. I mean, and first, anyway, you get a certificate of ESG score, even if it's not so good. Okay, and this you can publish on your website.
Right.
And I think this shows anyway that you are posing yourself the question, and you are willing to undertake a path of continuous improvement of the ESG regulation. So I think that, in my opinion, it's anyway good for your reputation
Right.
on the business market.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's all the questions that we have. If there are any other questions that will arise during our panel discussion, we will make sure to send it to you via email, Claudio, and maybe, you can give us some guidance on how to answer. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Claudio. I know I took too much of your time already, but yeah. Ciao, ciao.